that sleepest. Arise from the dead.
Read the Bible.
Awake thou that sleepest.
Going slow. I got it. It should start. I don't know why.
Awake thou that sleepest. Arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you'll find out that God's not too happy with what's going on around us.
Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed.
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore. Oh, how true. How true. Maybe especially not. By the way, I got a football score for you. Bremerton Knights 27, Mount Douglas 12. Say what? Yep.
What? Say what? Yeah.
Bremerton Knights 27, Mount Douglas 12. Have you heard of Joe Kennedy? Supreme Court case where he was praying with his team on the football field and he won the case. He's back and winning as usual and praying as usual.
Praise the Lord.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Start out with good news.
Somebody asked him when he prayed. He just said thank you. And he said he probably said it about 30 times. 8 years. Wow. They say like legal systems like watching paint dry. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. Great show for you again today, folks. Great show. We got two guests coming on the second hour. Canadians. Bill Whatcott we're going to get update on him. We've been following him very closely. And CD is going to be on. And CD is also having some issues with the Canadian system. And we're going to hear from another Canadian that's having some issues as well. Folks, let me read something to you. So you don't get disillusioned here. Let me read this. This is Quora is a liberal, probably into the hundreds of thousands now. You familiar with it, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I used to read their stuff to get the enemy news. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're still sending it out. Now, I've been banned from Quora in terms of remarking. I can read it, but I can't do anything about it. It's one of the many sites that I've been muted on, Facebook being one.
Well, what you can do is what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Share what they share.
So here's the question that was posted on Quora. We're now more than 3 years past COVID starting. Is there anyone who was very vocal about vaccine mandates that now regrets how they acted or feels ashamed given the new information that shows natural immunity was at least as effective? Answer. I won't mention the name. I'm very ashamed. As someone who is, here we go, immune compromised, I should have been standing on the corner with a bullhorn, making sure that every single person within the sound of my voice got vaccinated. I should have done more. Do you know what the movie Balto is about? I looked that up. I don't quite get it anyway. Go look it up. Check out what exactly vaccines do for us. She goes on, just so you understand, if you're under 40 and went to public school here in the U.S., you got something like 20 or 30 mandatory vaccines. They were required so you could attend school. So all this effing nonsense about not wearing a mask or not getting a vaccine is the biggest bucket of crap I've ever heard in my life. It's so dumb that doctors say, here's how to stay healthy, and people like, nah, I'm sure dying is okay. And here's an even bigger problem. Just because you don't feel sick, don't mean you aren't carrying the virus. And people like me who are compromised will die when people like you don't get vaccinated. This response should get to you. It really gets to me.
It still makes me question what
Yep.
the heck is a vaccine for?
Yeah, I quickly called a major medical company, Mr. Anderson, and ordered my hazmat suit. Hasn't come in yet because I don't want to be responsible for someone's death. I'm also not going to run my new electric car over 3 miles per hour. I'm going to look 10 times before I cross the street. I'm going to pay to have all my food inspected and hermetically sealed. I'm buying new room purifiers every week. I strip before I get into the house after being out in public. I'm going to put all my bath water through a Berkey. Never use the same washcloth or towel twice. I'm now taking medication that keeps me from sneezing and flagellating. And I make it a practice to walk 12 feet from other persons while I'm wearing 2 masks inside of my hazmat suit. I've also burned all my money, have destroyed all my credit cards, and I'm only doing business through the internet. Folks, I want you to understand something.
How do you clean the mouse?
Yeah. This is not going away, folks. This is not going away. And those folks that were wearing the mask, can't wait to get them back on. Can't wait to get them back on. Now, what we have to do is understand that and be prepared for it. Now, during my 3 decades long participation in the culture war, I've noticed that when our team decides to play offense, we actually win a game or two. We kind of talked about this last week. This is versus continue playing defense. Wait and see what the Marxist, progressive, God-hating liberals come up with, and then, of course, start backing away and compromising on their terms.
Here's a little poem you can share.
Okay. I can't hardly read that, Mr. Anderson.
I will not wear it on my face. I will not wear it any place. I will not wear it to get in. I will not wear it on my chin. I will not wear it on my ear. I will not wear it out of fear. I will not wear your stupid mask. I will not wear it. Do not ask.
We're going to get into a couple issues here. One is a Ohio issue that's coming up, and how we're handling that, and how I recommend that we might handle it. And before we do that, we're gonna see a Dinesh D'Souza video at a college campus, which basically, Dinesh, I'd like to get a hold of him and have him do our program for the resistance for issue 1 here in Ohio, because I can't wait till you listen to this, because he is just incredible. What he does with the enemy's words and how he ends up using them against them as not only a shield, but an offensive weapon. It's just absolutely, and we need to start learning how to think that way. We need to stop being defensive. We need to start being offensive and progressive. We need to stop waiting for them to make the first step. One of the things that we've done is like our natural family pledge. Get a hold of your, before November, those public servants or would-be public servants are running for office. Put that pledge in front of them. Will they support the natural family? That's a aggressive, offensive, and progressive move. And I tell you what, when you put that in front of them, it's going to make a difference. It's really going to make a difference. Trust me. The family's been under attack for decades.
It has been.
No fault divorce, gay marriage, children no longer wanting to be parents, let alone married. So what can we do? Again, that's one suggestion. In schools, there, momsforliberty.org has a pledge. And again, you can use this for other positions, but specifically designed for government-run schools, which basically says the parents are going to be in control, and I, as a school board member, existing or new, agree that you parents will be in control. This is a new public schools, right? Parents in control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you can also use, go ahead.
I mean, it's their kids, right? The school
Yep.
ought to listen to the people who own the kids.
And the other thing we're initiating, and this is just two things that this idiot from Ohio has come up with. You're smarter than I am. You just have to start thinking that you are as good as not better, but as good as those people that you're talking with, and that you can reason with them and that they're reasonable people. And you put them in a position where you're saying you're reasonable. And if they disagree with you, then you're going to admit, well, no, I'm not reasonable. And they won't do that. The same thing that keeps them wearing the mask, pride, will keep them from admitting that they're wrong. So you take their words, like Dinesh D'Souza does, and use them against them. He's just a thing of beauty. He really is. But again, we mentioned the homeroom moms. I got that right this time, Mr. Anderson, didn't I? Homeroom moms?
Yeah, homeroom moms.
Homeroom moms. And what we're doing and what they did in New Hampshire, this is already established in a public school in New Hampshire. We're trying to get it around schools here in Ohio, is having parents come in and assist. Teachers are overworked, folks. They're going to assist the teachers in the classroom. Now they're going to have to walk from hall to hall, from room to room. So they're going to be seen in the halls. And if you don't think that makes a difference with students, with teachers, and the administrative staff, you're crazy. They're going to be very careful in terms of what they put on the wall and what they have out for celebrations, right? And
I would hope so, yes.
And instead of a janitor working in the schools, a friendly janitor who says, oh, hey, by the way, this is what I noticed on the bulletin board, or did you know the schools were doing this? That's the only way we find out. Because the enemy will not reveal what it is they're trying to do. As with issue 1 in Ohio, they will not reveal what they're trying to do. They will not. You have to take their words or lack of words and use them against them. Make assumptives and make them answer to those assumptives. So I'm really excited about getting into this D'Souza video. Matter of fact, we're gonna start the break a little bit earlier. But remember, masks are coming back. I think $5 billion that the president signed that he's going to put into new vaccines, untested. Again, we're going to become lab rats again. Our children are going to become lab rats. They're going after the school children. They're going after those 5 to 10 and below if they can get there. And they're going to get this mRNA crap into their system, maybe even to the current vaccines they're using. I don't know. But we need to be offensive. Stop being defensive. That they count on that. They don't count on us being offensive. Hey, let's take a break, Mr. Anderson. And after the break, I want you to go ahead and just play that Dinesh D'Souza. This Dinesh is in a college environment, and he's asked the gotcha question by one of the students. And take a look what he does with the gotcha question. And I use this as an example in terms of what we have to do from our conservative Christian side.
How to turn it back on them.
Amen. Amen.
Hold up a mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you would, Mr. Anderson, let's take a break.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
Party supports for smaller government, and simultaneously the hundreds, if not thousands, of bills passed by Republican officials since 2011 that have policed the woman's body and limited female access to contraceptives and to abortion.
Oh boy. Oh
All
boy.
right.
Wait, you mean to murder? You mean killing an innocent life, those baby blessings? I'm just saying it ain't abortion. It's not birth control. It's murder. Let's get the labeling right. Let's not misconstrue it.
Somewhat like the mosquito in the nudist colony, I'm trying to figure out where to begin.
Okay.
Well, all right. So I'll say a very quick word about abortion, a very quick word about deregulation. Abortion first. We talk about birth control and abortion. Let's set aside for one moment the debate about whether or not abortion is a constitutional right. I would submit that it is not. You can read the Constitution, squeeze lemon juice on it, hold it upside down. It's just not in there.
Amen.
But let's assume it was. Let's assume it was sort of invisibly there as part of the Bill of Rights. Right up there with free speech and right up there with the right to religion and the right to assembly and so on. Here's my question to you. Why should the abortion right be subsidized when none of our other fundamental rights are?
Right. In other words, why should the government pay for you to go out there and kill innocent children when you were irresponsible or you aren't going to adopt that child, raise the baby that you laid it down and produced? I'm just saying the government shouldn't have to pay for that. Our tax dollars shouldn't go towards funding that. So,
I mean, you have a right to free speech. Does the government give you money to start a newspaper? You have a Second Amendment right to own a gun. Is the government going to buy you a shotgun? You have a right to free assembly. You got to do it on your own time. You have a right to free exercise of religion. The government's not going to pay for your churches. So, since the government pays for none of our other fundamental rights, why does this right get to be in a category of itself? That's my point number one. Pivoting to point number two.
Do you understand what he's just done here? What he just did with that trap question? He appeared to agree with the premise. He appeared to agree with the premise. And so he drugged them into the conversation, put his arm around them. And then as he put his arm around this young lady, he's starting to point out something. You know, what you're asking for is to be paid for. And let's just say I agree with you. So should we pay for churches? Should we pay for you to own a newspaper? Should we pay for your guns? You understand what he's doing here? He is totally crippled the argument. Go ahead. I got it, I think.
No corporation that pollutes the water should be allowed to do that because that is an actual infringement upon the common good. In other words, that is actually doing harm to the public. This is completely different from the real point of deregulation. The real point of deregulation is to create a scope in which individuals can transact freely. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean. We have a right to health care, and presumably we have an equivalent right to food, right? To eat. What could be more basic than the right to food? Now, let's assume that the government establishes not Obamacare, because that's healthcare, but an Obama right to food. And the basic idea here is that when you go to the grocery store, you can get food, and somebody else will pay. So you walk into the grocery store, you fill up your cart. I would submit, first of all, that you will excessively fill up your cart because you're not paying.
Doesn't that kind of already exist in the link card? And what kind of rights to food? Because some people over exaggerate and take advantage of that. People that are 5'1", obese, 300 something pounds. What kind of things are you digesting and putting into your body? And why should we pay for you to eat bonbons and McDonald's and Pop-Tarts and all these saturated processed foods? Why should we pay for that? I mean, if you want to go out there and eat kosher and all of that, still, why should we pay for it? You can go to work, you can get a job, you can get off your butt and provide for yourself and your family. But if the government wants to buy me an AR-15, I might have to consider, because there's some cool AR-15s out there. There's some real cool 9mm even out there that I'll take. If Joe Biden wants to go ahead and toss out that check for me to buy it, I probably won't accept it. But it's just a thought that went through my mind, and right out that.
And you're going to show up at the counter, at which point the woman behind the counter will notice that not only have you excessively filled up your cart, but since you're not paying, you don't care what the prices are.
Right.
And so suddenly milk will start costing $45 because some third guy is actually going to be footing the bill. Now, I would submit that this is in a nutshell what's wrong with our healthcare system. That whenever you go to the doctor, the reason that it costs $3,000 when you have a cold is not because it actually costs $3,000. If you were paying, they'd bill you $75. But since you're not paying, and the insurance company is paying, and the government is paying them, the doctor realizes, I'm going to run 45 tests. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It's all going to be money in my pocket. It's going to be money for the hospital. And this poor dude isn't the worst off. So most of the time when we go to the doctor, we don't even ask what it's going to cost because we don't care, because some third guy is paying. So the argument for deregulation is to try to create a healthcare system where people do have healthcare protections, but in which costs are kept down because the guy who's receiving the service is actually paying for it. Let me just throw out a wild idea. If the government were to say to you, everybody in this country has catastrophic health insurance from now on. In other words, if you have a heart attack, you have some catastrophic illness, it's covered. But for routine healthcare, right, everyone who is under a certain income bracket, we're going to give you a $5,000 check. Right? You're free to spend that money on healthcare, and if you don't use it, you can keep what you don't spend. I assure you that this will send a shockwave through the whole healthcare system. It changes the whole set of incentives because suddenly the money is your money. No third guy is paying. Now remember, you're covered for catastrophic, which is actually quite inexpensive because catastrophic events are rare. What actually drives our healthcare costs up is routine healthcare. And that's why Obamacare is so expensive, is it covers routine healthcare, which people should pay for.
Land sakes, I love that idea. This man never lets me down. God bless Dinesh D'Souza. The idea of you no longer get to milk the system and spend somebody else's money and go out there and act willy-nilly and do as you please, but this is your money. So you have to look in the mirror and consider, like, okay, how do I budget this? How can I stretch this dollar and make it into 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever it may be? When people go out there and commit illicit actions, whether it be sexual or whatever healthcare concerns they may have a little owie, and then they go and get all these tests and just rack it up. But when it's somebody else's money, that's easy. When it's your own money, it hits different. It feels a little different because you actually feel that being spent and coming out of your pocket instead of America's taxpayer dollars or government. We would get out of debt a whole lot faster if this plan was actually put in place. If the government, our tax dollars, didn't take care of all the world's problems or laziness and all of this. If people actually had to use their own means and the resources that they have worked for to go pay for things instead of using and burning up everybody else's. I like this. What do y'all think? But as far as the man of the hour goes, oh, he's always right on the money with common sense and actual factuals. That's what Dinesh brings to the table. And I'd vote the man for president someday. I know this man would come correct. I know his values and his moral compass is aligned with righteousness. His history, his just knowledge brain bank is just, he could make withdrawals at any given moment. I'm sure he's put tons of deposits in over the years because this guy's wisdom is next level. And the way he dishes it out and breaks it down in such a easily digestible manner, it's in a way that everyone should be able to understand. And you saw how she asked that question at first, but she didn't have anything else to say afterwards. She was speechless. She was silenced. And I appreciate that she respected the conversation enough to use those two ears, one mouth for a reason that God blessed us with. She listened. I would consider this civil discourse. I loved it. I love when you're there to talk to a speaker, to ask them a question, and you actually let them unveil what they know and their opinion on the topic. That's what I love to see. But I have to take it back to the first topic that was brought up, and that's abortion, because I'm a pro-life advocate all day long. I will always use my platform to stand up for innocent baby blessings in a mother's womb. And don't you just love how these Zoomers view the world, how they look at those babies? By Zoomers, I mean Gen Z. Because somehow, some way, this girl, you could tell just by her one question, the way she formed it, the way she uprighted them glasses, she sees abortion as contraception versus, oh, maybe condoms or abstinence, birth control, formerly known as being responsible.
I'm going to stop it there, Mr. Anderson.
It's cool. Yeah.
He's going to go into a Christian judgmental stance about abortion. And Myra, I forgot to get to you earlier. Why don't you come in, darling, and give us a Bible verse for today's conversation? Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Mr. Edwards and Mr. Anderson, it's such a pleasure and honor to be always on a Saturday. This weekend I have a wedding to attend, so I will not be able to stay the whole show, which I really miss because nothing better on Saturday morning to be watching Last Call. And earlier, you had talked about burnout for the teachers, and as the Lord allowed me to get the education and get the license to serve people, not to serve psychology. So I give praise to glory to the Father. But something that is interesting when it comes to any type of burnout is to have self-compassion. That's what I advise, to listen to the inner voice and to make a list of 10 things that you can do that brings joy and eh, to bring glory to the Father, of course, and make a priority list of things that you must do and the things they can wait. So the Bible verse for today um, is going to be, let me see, Psalm 37, 6 through 11. And he shall bring forth my righteousness as the light, and thy judgment as the noonday. Rest in the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who proposeth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. Cease from anger, and forsake the wrath. Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil, for evildoers shall be cut off, but those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his praise, and it shall not be. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. Holy Spirit, make yourself at home with Last Call. We love you, and hallelujah.
In that video we just saw, would you describe Dinesh D'Souza's attitude as meek? Was he up there judging and God hates it? And was he doing that, or was he reasoning?
He was reasoning.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And to me, when you walk into somebody's house and they've got a brand new baby, and the first thing you say is your baby's ugly, I'm pretty sure I know where the conversation is going after that. Anyway, we want to talk about issue 1 in Ohio, and it's quite an issue. Quite an issue. In August of this year, we Ohioans tried to raise the level to protect the amendment, the Constitution of Ohio, because right now 50% of the people plus one individual can change the Ohio Constitution. Now that is not something that the founders liked, but the majority of Ohioans, I think it was like 60%, said no. We want to protect our democracy. That's how this was sold, by the way. It wasn't about necessarily saving the life of a baby or children, parents not being able to make a decision about their child's sex as versus the government. It was, hey, this is a democracy. They were sold that. And that if you approve this amendment or this issue, it's going to be more difficult for you to live in a democracy. Now, the Constitution should be a solid foundation. But if you allow people to chip away at it, piece by piece by piece, you change it one year, and then you can always change it back the next. What does that do to the justice system? What does that do to the average citizen? You want stability. The founders knew that. You have to have stability. And by the way, they based their documents on the laws of nature, and nature's God. You know why they did that? Because natural laws, spiritual and physical, do not change. Can they be suspended? Yes. You can step off that cliff and maybe for a second you think you're okay, and then woof, you're gone. Whatever you identify as. If you identify you're not going to fall off the cliff, sorry, Jack, going to happen. Children need a mother and a father, one a male and one female, respectively. I guess a mother and a father to be one female, one male, respectively, right? Anyway, when we come back, I want to talk about issue 1 and how we should be reasoning and how we should be, again, playing offense as versus waiting and playing defense. So if you would, Mr. Anderson, take us to break. And do you have that mask video maybe?
I'll look.
Last Call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
You're looking for a mask video.
Hang on a second. I think I got it.
Hello, everyone. Luke's dad here. Just to remind you to wear your mask. You don't want the stormtroopers coming after you, do you?
That mask video.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a good one.
Proposed amendment. By the way, in the last 15 minutes, hopefully we're going to talk about the Last Call's first annual presidential debate. Yeah. We're inviting people to have a presidential debate on Last Call Saturday morning. I'll give the players here, but we'll do that. We'll do that after we talk about issue 1. And the proposed amendment would establish in the Constitution of the United States individual rights to one's own reproductive medical treatment. Now, what does that mean? Including but not limited to abortion. So it means more than abortion, right? Create legal protection for persons or entities that assist a person receiving reproductive medical rights, regardless of their parents. This doesn't say this. Their parents' input. The doctor says they should do it. They're going to do it, and the state will back them up. Grant a pregnant woman's treating physical authority to determine on one case by case. Only allow citizens of the state of Ohio to prevent an abortion. Take the federal government out of it. If passed, the amendment will become effective 30 days from when it's passed. This is a November issue 1. Now, let me give you a little clarification in terms of some of what this means. That's not being really mentioned. It's not being really promoted by the issue 1 promoters, but is in there. This is from Kerry Campbell Serino, president of the Judicial Crisis Network, and Frank Scaturi, vice president of Judicial Crisis Network. The proposed amendment, the one we're just talking about, would allow virtually any restrictions on abortion and all other procedures, including sex change surgeries that touch on reproduction. Well, if you change somebody's sex, that's definitely going to affect that, right? Sheesh. For both adults and minors, it would cancel out not only parental consent laws, but also mere parental notification for minors, abortions, or sex change surgeries. Strike down healthcare protections for people of all ages who undergo these procedures, including requirements that a qualified physician perform them, and erase any meaningful limits of late-term abortion. That's what we're talking about. I want to bring some of our panel in here, and you're welcome. You're welcome to. I'm going to bring Betty in here, and I'm going to bring Martin in. Martin, Betty, what are your comments with regards to
about what the idea
about Amendment 1?
Well, I am totally against it. For one thing, it's the parents who should have consent and not the teachers. I would be totally upset if somebody mutilated my grandchild. And secondly, if it's going to be like California where they can kill a baby after 28 days, I'm already upset that they kill it at the beginning.
Yeah.
But to see that beautiful little baby there cooing at you, and you have a heart that is so heartless and evil that you can murder your own child.
Okay.
So people need to wake up and smell the roses, get their heads out of the sand, and get out there and stand and start fighting for our freedoms and our children.
And I agree with you, Betty. The question is, what does that should that look like? If in my humble opinion, if we just make that about abortion and the same arguments we've had for 40, 50, 60 years, if we do those same arguments, how is that going to affect the public? A public, which, by the way, feels that their decisions have been messed.
Well, I would go in a different route.
Okay.
I would start with gun control, because when you can mess with the Constitution, they're going to take our guns away, you know.
Okay.
And well, every kind of freedom there is. And also, if they have that right, there might be a possibility they could put those masks as a mandatory for life thing in the Constitution.
At least on the children.
Excuse me?
At least on the children, right? Because they're going to have rights over the children.
Yes.
Okay. Martin, any comments on this? Thanks, Betty.
It's just I understand the frustration, and I loved the video prior with Dinesh D'Souza putting it out so straightforward. But what I get concerned with, BJ, is you've got facts, but then you have beliefs, and you can speak fact after fact after fact. But if someone is steeped deeply in their belief system, facts just do not resonate. So that's what I am concerned. You've got several different people groups in Ohio who believe abortion is okay. It's the woman's choice. And then you have the others that say it's not okay because it is a life. So bringing the person who says it's okay to understand that what's growing inside the woman's womb is a life, that's the real battle. And as you've said, we've been battling this for many, many years. This is something that I don't believe, honestly, can be handled with issue 1, BJ. I don't believe it can be handled with a law coming down. I always go back to the 10 Commandments. And I know I frustrate a lot of Christians when I say this, but God tried to legislate people to love one another when he put forth the 10 Commandments in Exodus 20. Okay. That did not happen. People still hurt each other. People still robbed from each other. People still bore false witness to one another. What changed is when he sent his son to do the work that was required. He ascended back to heaven after the amazing resurrection and then sent his spirit into the human being. Honestly, BJ, Miss Perkins, Mr. Anderson, I really believe until that reality occurs in a human being, the person who believes that the baby is not a baby will still believe that it's not a baby.
Okay, and I don't disagree with you, Martin, but look what Dinesh did. He didn't take that approach.
Yeah.
He knows that he isn't going to be able, he's working on changing her reactions versus her beliefs.
Sure.
And he brought her, like I said, he put her arm around her and said, I agree with you. I agree with you, but here's the issue. And then and that's where we need, to me, that's where we need to go. Look, I'm definitely pro-life. I definitely believe that. But in terms of defending the unborn, this is going to, abortion notwithstanding, people are going to lose their rights to make decisions on things. We have to do the general public. You're going to lose this, or this is going to cost, the cost of abortion, to the nation, the last figures I read in 2019 was 20% of the gross national product. 20%, because they aborted so many children. And arguments like that is where I think we really need to come from, as versus like the gentleman that gave the film on Danusha. He started to go into the, well, you're killing babies and that. And please, I'm sorry, I agree with it, but it ain't going to fly.
So something that I look at, you go out and about and you see lots and lots of "we're hiring" signs, and places are inefficiently being run now because they say, I can't find enough workers. And I'm like, have you thought about the 60 million that citizens that we don't have to put in the workforce now? That's a problem. So let's let the babies live. We need workers. This situation, of course, to me, it's simple, and I agree with the guy. It's murder, and we don't murder. That some people don't agree with that. They don't think a unborn child is a child yet, but unless, of course, they're pregnant and they want it, then it's a child. I'm looking at this incident in Blendon Woods, where an officer shot a pregnant woman and killed the woman and the baby. Now, if he's charged, will he be charged for a double murder? Yet we can say it's okay to kill a baby while it's not born yet. It's a confused society. We got a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, and that's I love that the movement is to try to change the mind via facts and logic, like our videos show. But the problem is I would like to see if that woman that Dinesh spoke with changes. What was the outcome of that, BJ? Do we know if that young lady that stood up in the auditorium did he change her mind?
She could not respond to that. She froze. She could not say anything. She had no retort for that. And this isn't just about her. This is about the audience that was there, about the video audience that's seen this. And again, I can't emphasize this so much. Look, we're not talking to Christians out here. We're talking to the average Joe. We need the average Joe's vote. We need that 30%. We've got 30 on one side, 30 on the other. We need that 30% in between. And if you start preaching to them and you start yelling at them and you start condemning them, click, conversation's over with. If they vote at all, they will vote against you because they don't like you telling them that their baby's ugly.
So is that what it is? It's about a feeling issue. If in other words, if we can come along like he did and put our arm around him, do you think we could have a better effect? Because we can't change who we are either. They're wanting us to change or massage whatever to their mindset. As God-fearing people, we can't. We will not turn to the right or to the left when it says kill humans.
Dinesh he didn't turn. He didn't give anything up. He did not give anything up. He didn't bring her over to the area where she was going to be condemned. Once you do that, you're going to get the rejection. We have to stay away from that. Not ignoring the abortion issue, but we want to get something done. And again, you don't walk into a house, tell somebody that their baby's ugly, and here, sign this petition for this candidate. No way, Ray.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful. And the noise, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of the same message over and over and over and over again, that's now annoying to people. And if that's all we have to offer, I fear that is a route to failure. So I'm saying, okay, as Christians, as believers, let's try to reason in a different way, in a way that we can put our arms around that individual like Dinesh did and said, you know, I'm with you, but here's a problem. Help me with this problem.
Well, once again, I would love to see what the effects were of that meeting, and it would have been, I know I'm speaking in dreamland here, but it would have been nice to hear if someone had an exit poll microphone. Hey, after that, as they filed out of that room, what is your take on it now?
She's,
what is your take?
I'm going to let Betty in here, but she is not going to change her position. But it might be a case where, okay, maybe I won't be as forceful the next time I'm out there, because I might run across somebody like D'Souza. So how she affects somebody else's opinion might be the most important thing. Her opinion is not going to change. She's going to be, when she thinks about it, she's going to be really upset about being used. And that is what she is, being used. Betty, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that the pastors is who I basically blame. It is their job to preach and teach and tell people what is right, what is wrong, what's love, what's hate, whatever. And that passes it down to the parents, and from the parents to the children. But no, the parents have gotten lazy and the pastors have gotten lukewarm. So now the union schools have become the parents and the professors from college, and they are just really, really destroying our children. And they're brainwashing them, and they get it so instilled in their brain that they can't see any different now.
Yep. And the male, don't leave the male in the family out of this, Betty. He is just as culpable as the pastor. The pastor can't do anything if the family's broken. Come on. If you have the woman leading the family and into the church, what can the pastor do?
Actually, I was saying that the pastor needs to teach these parents, especially the father. And we have a fatherless society too. That really hurts us, know. But if they taught them and told them how to be a father and a husband and whatever, they could teach their children instead of letting the schools and the colleges take over. Parents need to quit being lazy, and fathers need to stand up.
Amen. But there's one other thing. And if you put your hands out, okay, out in front of you, put your arms out in front of you and turn them over, what do you see? You see your hands, don't you? That's what we're missing here. We're missing the public's, regardless of whether your pastor or that father does anything, you still, if you know the difference, you as a Christian, you as a conservative, or you as somebody who knows the difference, you got to work these things. Pick up the phone, use the typewriter, carry a sign. I don't care. But it is up to you as much as it is to the father. And I mean, you can affect people. I'm not a pastor, but I've affected people. Same thing with Martin and Betty. I'm sure the same thing with you. You have changed people's lives because you've used these things. You've stepped out and done it. Hey, we're going to have to take a break. We can continue the conversation. Maybe I'll get into our presidential debate after our second hour, Mr. Anderson. I don't know whether we're going to have time or not. I'm sure that Betty and Martin might have a few more comments, and maybe even you, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I do have a couple.
Okay.
You want to go to break?
Yeah. B.J. Edwards, along, Mr. Anderson. This is your last call. Reason, folks. Think. Don't react. Don't be emotional. Know your audience. Know what they believe in. Then you can start making decisions about how you can, again, like I said before, find something that you can both agree on, which is what D'Souza did. If you would, Mr. Anderson, please.
Your daughter's young, vulnerable, online. You fear the worst, pushed to change her sex or to get an abortion. You have some right to help her through this, but activists want to take all that away. Under their proposed amendment to the Ohio Constitution, the state shall not interfere with individuals getting abortions or sex changes, meaning you could be cut out of the biggest decision of her life.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with B.J. Edwards.
Jay Edwards, last call. Hey, stay tuned for the second hour. Brother Bill Whatcott's coming back. We have a mystery guest coming along with him. And you're going to love it. Second hour, you're going to love it. We're talking about issue 1, state of Ohio, which basically would command anyone that wants to get an abortion to go anywhere they want to get it at any time. And also
up to 9 months, I think.
Yeah. Also keep parents from being active in that decision, as well as the decision about their sex. In other words, they could change their sex and the parents don't have to be told. They don't have to be told, and they can't be involved in that. Children's Service come in and take the baby, take the child, whatever. We've been having a great conversation with Martin, with Betty, and Martin, I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted you. Anything else you want to say, sir?
You are fine. Like Betty was saying, it stops at my front door, BJ. What do I mean by that? Fathers, especially, just as Betty has pointed out, fathers, it's got to stop at your front door. Whatever is happening out in your yard and beyond your yard, okay. But when it comes into your yard, you're the gatekeeper. So as BJ's talking about these issues that could be made law, I'm not going to comply by teaching my 2 children. I have 2 children. I'm their iron dad. They got me this cup for Father's Day once, iron dad, because they know how involved I am in things. You have to stand in between. Okay, whatever the law says, if your daughter is now allowed to go and have her sex changed, or your son is now allowed to go have his sex changed, according to Ohio law and according to what they're being taught at their school, you stand in between it and you say no. How do you do that? You teach your children with this book right here. Yeah, you don't have to preach and hit them with it. And you say, honey, son, this is reality. What they're teaching you in your school is not when it comes to your identity as a young woman or young man. I will help you because I'm your father. They don't care about you. I do. And I will teach you this, which has been guiding people for thousands of years in righteousness and health and in goodness on planet Earth. That's what's got to happen, BJ. Now, as church members, yes, we should be involved in our political process. We should stop anything that's going to hurt or harm human beings, especially innocent human beings. But that's not where it stops. You got to start by teaching real material to the human beings that God has entrusted you with. This is a very heated thing with me, and I hope that other parents out there take these words as reality. And if you don't know Jesus Christ, we're glad to teach about him, to give you the infilling of the Holy Spirit so you can understand what this stuff is. And that's where I do a lot of my first BJ Edwards 3:16, be ye doers, last call viewers. I try to teach people about God. And I'll offend them, BJ. I know I will.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, I think you wanted to make a comment or two. Myra, if you want to make a comment, let us know. Hold your hand up.
I think one of the biggest dangers with this issue 1 right now in the media, they're trying to debunk the idea that parents are going to lose their rights.
Yeah.
And I have a 3-minute clip, but I don't want to play it now but the Channel 4 News has been hitting really hard, saying that, that, like the video I just played with the parent or the parents being warned about their daughters at risk. That stuff is being covered up. They're making it about abortion, yes, but they're not allowing the idea of parental rights and what's happening to those. And I look at abortion bad, yes, but parent rights maybe ought to be the number 1 headline. You might have parents out there that say, well, yeah, abortion, well, I would vote for that because it's somebody else's right. I wouldn't do it, but they might need the right to do that. They might be in that camp. But if you tell them your rights to your child are being removed, you might have another person voting no on that issue.
Yep. They're leading with the same thing we're leading. They're making this a pro-life abortion issue. We're making it a pro-life abortion issue. Is there something wrong with that? Just asking a question. Just asking a question. And I don't know. We're making an assumptive if we just do strictly pro-life that the majority of Ohioans that are going to vote are morally in tune with what really happens during abortion. I think that is a dangerous assumption. I base that based talking with people about the issue to begin with, and also when I was running a petition for a school board member. Both, I learned some very interesting things about people out there that kind of concerned me.
Rightfully so, I think.
Yep.
And they're hiding this issue. They talk about rights. Well, let's talk about whose rights. You got two different rights here being challenged.
Yep. Meyer, we got about
Amen.
1 minute before we go to our I got her in there, Mr. Anderson. Before we go to the warning. Meyer, go ahead and unmute yourself. I think you wanted to say something. Well, maybe no. Okay.
Can't unmute her.
Yeah. Meyer, you're gonna have to unmute yourself if you want to talk. Okay, we'll take her down then. But to me, now this is me, and I hope I'm wrong. I pray that I'm wrong. But boy, from what I've been talking, who I've been talking with, and what I've been hearing, it scares me to death that this is going to become a pro-life issue. And please don't misunderstand. I'm as pro-life as anybody else, but I'm also not going to, I'm also being realistic. When I have a conversation with folks and I want to get them to Christ, I have conversations about natural laws, using that as a bridge. That's me personally, using that as a bridge to get to the Bible, because the Bible records natural laws. That's what the Bible does. It is a recording of natural laws, the laws that God created in the beginning. Mr. Anderson, we got a 2-minute warning coming up.
Yeah, we do.
All right, why don't you go ahead and play that? We'll get to our second hour with Bill Watcott and our mystery guest.
Got to scroll through here and find it.
B.J. Edwards, along with Mr. Anderson, this is your last call. Look at passion. Passion is very, very important. And I don't hold anybody down because they're passionate, whether they're totally with me or totally against me. At least they care enough to be passionate about an issue.
Amen. That's why we like our panel.
The Industrial Revolution modernized the United States and Canada during the 19th century. As people enjoyed steady employment, they compromised their rights in the workplace. Longer work hours and pay cuts were imposed. U.S. labor groups began protecting themselves by unionizing. In Canada, unions were illegal until 1872, when thousands of Ottawa laborers marched to Prime Minister John Macdonald's home. That year, Canada wiped the anti-union law from its books, and the march became an annual Canadian tradition. In 1882, Toronto labor officials invited an American union leader, Peter J. Maguire, to Toronto's labor celebrations. Maguire was so impressed that he suggested a workers' parade to New York City's Central Labor Union. He chose September 5th as the date because it filled the long void between July 4th and Thanksgiving. Coincidentally, that same year, a machinist from Paterson, New Jersey, Matthew Maguire, also proposed a laborers' celebration. On Tuesday, September 5th, 1882, thousands of New York City laborers marched from City Hall to Union Square. They gathered in Reservoir Park for an afternoon of picnics, concerts, and speeches rallying for an 8-hour workday. 2 years later, the Central Labor Union moved the parade to the first Monday in September. They also encouraged all U.S. cities to follow New York's lead and march for the working man's holiday. For many, the choice was to either spend the day at work or march without pay. That began to change when Oregon became the first state to legalize the Labor Day holiday in 1887. Other states, including New York, soon followed. It took a political disaster to put Labor Day on the national calendar. In 1894, railway workers in Pullman, Illinois went on strike to protest wage cuts. President Grover Cleveland faced pressure to end the demonstrations and sent 12,000 federal troops to break the strike. Violence erupted. 2 strikers were killed, and Cleveland's harsh methods made headlines. In an attempt to appease the nation's workers, he signed a bill to make Labor Day a federal holiday. Cleveland still lost that year's election. America's workers continued to gain power through the 1950s, when over a third of all labor forces were unionized. Labor Day had become a time to rally workers for safer conditions, fair pay, and benefits. But in the second half of the 20th century, the U.S. labor force diminished. Many factories closed. Jobs were outsourced to other countries. Today, workers still parade through blue-collar neighborhoods on Labor Day, and speeches unite the ever-dwindling labor force. But the day's true call has quieted. For now, most Americans leisurely enjoy the holiday as summer's last bow.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
That reminder, Mr. Anderson, Labor Day weekend.
That's right.
That's a good video there. Very good video. You're on your game.
Sweet. We won't talk about the communist aspects to it, right?
We were talking in the program about pastors and about fathers and about individuals. The saying is, for evil to flourish, good men need only do nothing. There's a lot of people that are quietly sitting back and hoping things will change, that the pendulum will swing this way and it'll swing back. But what we don't realize is, since the beginning of the time, that pendulum swings from left to right, yes. But the point that it's swinging from is moving to the left, to the left, and to the left. And it never gets back to the Garden of Eden, okay? It never gets back there. It's always getting worse and worse if you're going to depend on the pendulum. If you want to change something, you got to change that point back towards the right. But the left has been very good about, well, they make themselves victims. And gosh, don't you feel sorry for us about insane issues. And one of the most insane issues, and I'm going to bring our guest Bill Watcott on here shortly. You could ask the question, how bad is it going to get? I want you to think about this. Think about transgenderism. Think about what they're doing with our children in our government-run schools. This is from Germany, and I got this from Elizabeth Johnston. And I hope you're sitting down, pilgrims. Some German preschools have reportedly been creating sexual exploration rooms. Maybe you didn't hear that. Sexual exploration rooms for young children to touch themselves. Yep. According to Fox News, 2 nurseries in Germany have discussed creating the safe spaces due to the fact that sexual behavior by children cannot be prevented, as the state's children ministry had said. Pro Familia, which Fox describes as Germany's leading professional association on sexuality and partnership, recently recommended that daycares establish body exploration rooms and sexual games for children. And yeah, parents aren't walking in the schools, they aren't looking, and they were shocked to receive an email from Hanover Area Daycare Center, which detailed how children would be encouraged to pet and examine one another in these rooms. All children, especially preschoolers, are aware of the places in the facility where nudity and body exploration can take place. I'm not going to go on any further, okay?
That's enough. That's enough. You're hurting me.
Ask me how far this can get. Ask me. Why don't you bring Bill Watcott on? Hey, Bill, welcome back to Last Call. Bill, for those of you that aren't regulars, speaking of regulars, Bill is a regular in Canadian courts. Bill got himself into a gay pride parade several years ago, and you can tell us the beginning of that when you can, Bill. Several years ago, and his goal was to share the love, the truth, and hope of Jesus Christ, posing as a friend. And he can explain to you maybe what that entailed. Well, the enemy took exception to this and took him to court. And guess what? Bill won the case.
Yeah.
And in Canada, it's a little bit different situation. And there's no double jeopardy here in the United States, but in Canada, it's a little different situation, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, my case probably should have never been appealed, but they can, if there's a gross error, appeal. I don't see how mine could be a gross error, even if you don't like what I did. And generally, it has to be a real public interest, like, maybe a sex offender. It turns out the judge is a buddy of the sex offender and acquits them, something like that. But, my case where the judge looked at the flyer, we had a 16-day trial about it already. And it doesn't seem to me that the judge was my buddy. He was highly differential to LGBT. He just stated, which everyone who ever looked at my flyer that I know of, including a few gay guys, they looked at my flyer and they've never found it to be hate speech. So I don't think there was a gross error, but Canada being what it is, they found the money to appeal this thing to the Court of Appeal. And we had 3 judges, all of them Trudeau Liberal appointees. One of the judges looks like a biological male, but he's woke. He assumes that you're not assuming he's a male, so he helps you out with his pronouns at the end of his Twitter handle, he, him, and I guess that's how he does his communications. I'm Lorne Sawson, he, him, because he might be a female, even though he looks like a 60-year-old man to me. Yeah, with judges like that, they're happy to let violent criminals out, but yeah, my flyer needs to be appealed. And the error in law was that we didn't have a guy by the name of Nick Muley, and I was just shocked at what you were telling me about Germany there. I didn't want to believe it, so I actually was Googling while you said that. I thought, no, that sounds like our side has from time to time put out rumors that aren't based on anything, but indeed in Germany, there is lunatics who think children need to explore their sexuality in daycares. There's lunatics. So the same with Nick Muley. He's a lunatic. He does have a degree and he teaches, I guess, at York University, but that doesn't mean much. His theses that I looked at, or his expertise, is homosexuals snorting crystal meth while having sex, and the need to create safe spaces in public parks for homosexuals to sodomize each other. And then queering social work. That was another one. And he had a few other wacky things when I looked up his curriculum vitae. And for reasons that I have to admit I can't fathom, the judge thinks we need to hear from this guy on whether my flyer is a hate crime or not. I guess to give historical gay context to it or something along those, some kind of word salad in my ruling. So Lord have mercy. We're appealing to the Supreme Court of Canada to get this overturned from the Court of Appeal. But if it isn't overturned, then the Court of Appeal has ordered me to have another trial in the Ontario Superior Court, and that's what will happen.
How many years ago did this start, Bill?
Well, that's the other thing that's bizarre. Yeah, I infiltrated the homosexual parade with my gospel flyers back in 2016. And I think most of the world got over it, and the vast majority of people don't even know about it. But it seems that the courts can't get over it, or the LGBT lobby in Toronto.
Why are they coming after you, Bill? I'm assuming that you've been effective somehow, some way.
Yeah, it was effective, even though I got criticism from different Christians, which doesn't bother me because Christians aren't known for, doing stuff. I use the apparatus of the parade just from a pragmatic point of view. This parade is highly, highly, highly effective at delivering information. They got hundreds of thousands of people there. they've dumped millions upon millions of tax dollars on this. And yeah, it was a ready-made audience for me. Once I paid my $100, I think that was the best $100 I ever paid to Toronto Pride Committee. I had they claim 1 million, but they're full of hot air. They probably got a crowd of about 300,000, which is still absolutely huge. They got 300,000 people shoulder to shoulder, just waiting for you to give them something. And Planned Parenthood is out there handing out their lube and condoms, and there's other groups handing out their stuff for whatever debauched, thing that they're arguing or selling or peddling. So we were able to give the unchurched, because these are overwhelmingly unchurched individuals, obviously. We were able to give them the gospel. And I got out 3,000 gospel flyers that people thought were condoms, I assume. But what it said was zombie safe sex. That was a stamp we put on them. Zombie safe sex, $5. Now, we didn't charge for them. We handed them out free of charge. But if you get something worth $5, you're generally not going to throw it in the garbage. There was a bunch of Trojan condoms, and people just dropped them on the ground because they were flying all over the place like candy. And I don't know what a Trojan condom is, probably a few cents, or maybe with inflation, maybe they're $1 nowadays. I don't know. And then there was safe sex tips and things that people are handing out at the parade. And a lot of that stuff winds up on the sidewalk and in the garbage. Well, my thing, when people got it, it was a $5 thing in their head. So that one they saved for later on. And there was a bunch of homosexuals F-bombing me and sending porn to my email at 1 and 2 in the morning. And I have a pretty good idea that they're zombie safe sex. They opened it up with their boyfriend at that hour, and they got the gospel when they were looking for something else. So I think it was very, very effective from a tactical point of view. And they turned it into a bit of a strategic victory, because thanks to their prosecution, probably 1 million people know about it now, where I could only reach 3,000. They amplified it 100-fold.
Brilliant marketing, by the way, Bill.
Brilliant
marketing. And
none of them wound up in the litter. Every one of them got opened, and someone had to read it.
And they knew they'd been had. And
they're always attacking us, infiltrating us. So it's kind of disingenuous that they scream so much that I pulled one over on them. Really.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just, but good for you. And by the way, you mentioned you're going back to you're appealing. You had a decision. You were not guilty. They took it to a higher court.
That's right.
They said take it back to the other court, or they overturned. Did they overturn the decision?
They overturned the acquittal. I was acquitted.
Okay.
I was acquitted, and they ordered a new trial, with the caveat that this time Nick Muley, the bathroom sex, park sex, queering social work expert's perspective has to be brought in to balance everything out. Because we did have a Dr. Farrow, who was a religious expert, a professor from McGill University. And certainly, I think he made a lot of relevant comments about my flyer. He said the gospel was in there. He was Roman Catholic, but he said there was a very clear invitation to receive Christ. And, from his point of view, the warnings were not hate speech. The warnings about medical risks and things. He said that was a Christian duty. So the courts felt that, well, you have to balance this perspective with Nick Muley, because he gives a queer liberationist perspective. And once we get the queer liberationist perspective, well, then we can have a ruling.
Like Columbo, just one more thing. The old Columbo, just one more thing.
Well, it wasn't one more that would help me out. It's
I know that.
Yeah.
Bill, we're going to take a break, and after the break, I'm going to bring CD from Canada in, and CD is our mystery guest. He is a Canadian. He's got a story to share, and I want to kind of get your impressions of what's happening to CD. And there's another Canadian out there, Jordan Peterson, that's getting a little What is going on in Canada, folks? And is this going to get to the United States? What's going on in Germany? Is that going to get to the United States, or is that already here? Who knows?
I think both Peterson and Germany are in the United States to some degree.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Anderson, if you would, BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, this is your last
call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
And we are back. We're on with Canadian Bill Watcott. And I think, do we have CD in? I'll add him to the stream, Mr. Anderson. Okay, I got him in the screen, Mr. Anderson. We've got CD here. CD here is I believe, a Canadian as well. And he's kind of had a run-in with the judicial system. And I believe also the school system. CD, welcome to Last Call.
Yeah, hi, thank you.
Hey, good. So what is your experience with the Canadian judicial system, and how's this affecting you and your family?
Yeah, the Canadian judicial system, just like you were asking Bill Watcott, it hasn't been good. It hasn't been favorable to people that are conservative, that's for sure. It's definitely a system that seems to be part of the woke community. They definitely seem to support all of this left-wing agenda. The transition of children is where I fit into this. I know Bill takes on the bigger issue of the entire LGBTQ as more of a whole, but what's happening in Canada with our children, and this is like where I slot in, is the government has said, hey, it doesn't matter if a parent or two parents consent to their children being transitioned in this country. The child can sort of decide that, and if the doctor goes along with it, it's irrespective of what the parents have to say on that matter. So and what unfortunately happened with me is the courts actually agreed with that. The argument was made is, how can a child who's 12, 13 consent to irreversible medical interventions at such a young age, and when the common sense is what everybody knows, is that, hey, we don't let them drive cars, smoke cigarettes, get tattoos, drink alcohol. There's a host of things they're forbidden to do based on their age and their maturity levels. But in this case, they can do irreversible operations, surgeries, take hormones, cross-sex hormones, Lupron. And the genius of the court was that they actually sided with this and said, well, we agree that this makes sense. And so what's happening in our courts right now, in my opinion, is they're forcing people to believe in a delusion. So they're simply saying the integrity of the court is so shot and messed up in Canada right now because the courts are teaching that you have to lie. You have to believe in something that's not true. So where is the respect in the courts at this point? Like, this is the insanity of it all, is that, what's up is down, and you have what you would consider, or ought to be, intelligent people putting you in a position where you have to become unintelligible in a sense in order to meet their criteria. And if you try to talk common sense to the courts, like Bill is trying to do as well, I mean, they shoot you down. It's insane that it's like talking to a little kid who just says, just keeps coming back at you and repeating what you said or saying something stupid, and it's sort of like talking to a wall. And that seems to be how the courts are behaving right now. It's the most bizarre experience.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on, CD. Hold on. You went to court and a judge agreed with you. So game, set, and match, right?
No, the courts didn't agree with me. My child got transitioned.
Ooh.
I tried to prevent it.
I thought you said the judge agreed with you.
No, not at all. No, in fact, the judge at one time said it was family violence if I misgendered my own child and all these different things. And that was, family violence.
You should point out misgender means referring to your child by her biological sex.
That's right.
You were actually correctly misgendering. It's the courts misgendering her.
That's right. It's the delusion created by the courts that is saying, hey, like my daughter, I have to call my daughter a he because that's what that child wants, and the courts are siding with this lunacy. Is what misgendering is. Bill is trying to point out. Yes.
So what happened to you? You obviously opposed this. What is your history with the courts, and where are you right now?
So this goes back to 2018, 2019 is when I was in the courts dealing with all of the stuff to do with my child in terms of trying to prevent the transition, the medical transition, the sterilization, all these things that go along with it. And I lost. I lost spectacular losses, actually. Like it was, you couldn't have lost any worse than I lost in the courts at that time. And so we appealed it to the BC Court of Appeal. They toned some of the things down a little bit. They kind of said, well, you know, instead of just this affirmation model, which is what we were hearing about for so long, where, you know, whatever the child wants, we all pander to it. The BC Court of Appeal at that time in 2020, and they're really did say that you know, it's not really on the child, it's on the doctor. So this kind of opened up the door that the doctor is now responsible for what he is choosing for the child. It's not just
the parent.
But meanwhile, I mean, these people, like, I'm under a non-sort of gag orders, and it's because all these doctors that were so proud of transitioning kids, you know, they are all cowards. They've been hiding behind these children for a very long time. They continue to hide behind them. You know, if they're so proud of what they do, why don't they come out and say, hey, I'm Dr. So-and-so, and I'm so proud that I just sterilized this child. And they won't do that. That's the agenda. This is why the government doesn't want anyone to know what's going on. This is why they gag. It's because they're not proud of their agenda. Because they know if parents found out what was going on, they'd be horrified. And then, lo and behold, this is what we're seeing across America right now, in Europe, and it's starting to get into Canada with some of these provinces that are making rules. But where I'm at now is the question that you asked. And so I broke all these gag orders after this because I thought it was important that parents and everybody knows what is happening in the schools, because I had a front row seat to this as affidavits were coming out to court, finding out it was the school that changed my daughter's name. It wasn't my daughter herself, as alleged before this. And it was crazy what all came out, how involved the schools were in the entire process from the beginning, and how they led her along from point A to the finish line. And so I broke those gag orders. I went on a bunch of shows. I did a bunch of interviews, and that's what landed me back in court. And it was for contempt of court because I violated the court's orders. And in the end of it all, that's when I ended up in jail with a 6-month jail sentence and a $30,000 fine, just because I had violated the gag orders. And
American CD. Let me interrupt here. Are you listening? Are you listening to what's happening? What would you do as a parent? What would you do? Well, gosh, I mean, the government said it and the doctor said it. So I know better, but I'm just going to sit back and do what they tell me to do. Is that what you're going to do? Look, it is up to us, we the people. We still have control, whether it be in Canada, the United States. We the people still have control, but we need to, number one, join with others and stop criticizing them. And number two, grow up. Well, anyway, I won't say that. Go ahead, CD.
So I ended up with a 6-month sentence. I served about a couple months of it. In the end of it all, it was about 70 days. I ended up in prison before getting out on bail. I was out on bail for about a year and a half. And finally, I got heard in the BC Court of Appeal because I appealed the sentence, the length of the sentence, because I thought this is insane that, you know, if a parent speaks out against what's happening to their child, that this is a precedent that, you know, that you can easily get thrown in jail for a half a year for protecting your own child or attempting to protect your child. And so that was my appeal. And in the BC Court of Appeal agreed on that. Just the ruling came down August 9 on this actually, and they agreed with me that the sentence was too harsh. And so anything that was left on the sentence that I had not already served, meaning the 70 days, they got rid of it all. And they said, you know, time served from what you've been in, you've done, go home and it's over, pretty much. Other than I'm still under gag orders and publication bans are still in effect. So that part hasn't changed. But so here we are. And now I don't know what comes next here, but so no, I'm sad to see that, you know, Bill is still going along his court case. Like, I guess I've got some sense of closure, but boy, they're really dragging this one out with him, that's for sure. And and I think it's terrible that they continue to find every reason under the sun to find. I mean, I don't understand how you can bring in new people, and how many people is it going to take before you find the right crackhead that's going to get Bill Walcott in more trouble, right? I mean, that's like, it's not going to take too far a walk down some streets in downtown Vancouver or somewhere to find these people, and it's just despicable how the government is so determined, to steal your children, and where the adults come in. And this is, often you'll hear people say, well, the adults, they can do whatever they want. Trudeau Senior said once upon a time, what you do in your bedroom is your business. But the problem is these homosexuals, these transgender activists, they've taken it out of their bedrooms and stuck it into our classrooms now. And so there's got to be some accountability, because this is the shift. They've got so brazen that they don't feel like they need to hide in their bedroom anymore. And they're stealing all of the kids. The agenda is out there. It's obvious. It's clear. How many freedom slips do the trans activists have to do before people wake up? I mean, they're constantly alluding to the fact that they're there to steal your children, and they love it. I mean, they're not even really kind of hiding it anymore. And so, when Bill is targeting these pride parades, and do you see all the little kids running around in these pride parades? I mean, of our prime minister running around with his kids and other kids in pride parades, running around like a flaming something or another, right? So it's a tragedy where these kids slot in, as complete victims of this. Like, my child is a victim, because what they do is they're selling something that they really can't. These kids really won't be buying into. They're telling these kids, hey, if you're a sad little girl, just be like an avatar, like you do on a video game, right? You create your character, you can do whatever you want. You lose yourself in these fantasy games. And they're telling you that your life can be like these video games you play. You're an avatar, you can be whatever you want. And of course, this is great. These kids are loving it. I can be a boy, I can do this, I can do that.
Yep.
But the delusion wears off, right? It's a short-lived fix, and then things are way worse.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna get Martin in here, and I also want Bill's comments. We're gonna take a break here. Before we take a break, I remember going to a gay pride parade here in Columbus, Ohio, and I think they got up to like 300 or 400 or 500,000 as the parade is now. And the first time I went there, I got out of the car, and I had the darndest feeling. I mean, there's something that's just dark about. I mean, as soon as I stepped out of the car, I could feel that spirit. And I'm looking around, and a lady pulls in beside me with her daughter and has her in hand and looks at me, and she says, "Boy, I'm so excited. This is the first gay parade for my daughter." And I about choked. But look, we're talking about, most of this is one-way conversations in the USA and Canada, maybe throughout the world. You have an entity that's controlling the dialogue. He who controls the information controls the world. And we have people like Bill and CD and others that are suffering for that. And the only way that changes is we, the people. And I don't know how that would work in Canada. And I don't know, I haven't seen it work here in the United States recently. I saw it work, in 1700s. And I'm not saying that we have to have revolutionary war here, physical, but we can do this without having a physical, but we've got to say no. We have to say no and believe in it. And there's going to be a cost, folks. There is going to be a cost. It's going to stress your relationship with your family. It's going to probably separate some families. But if we don't do something and we don't do it now, God help us. And by the way, I believe God is watching over us, and he's waiting for us to, number one, believe in his power, and number two, act. Pray, yes, please pray. But if you're not going to do something after you pray, then where is the sincerity in what you're saying? Well, I can't do anything. Yes, you can. The thing that I've always noticed about prayer, we'll take a break here in a minute, Mr. Anderson. The thing I've always noticed about prayer is every time I pray, God gives me something to do. And I'm going, whoa, wait, God, hold on. No. This is to get somebody else to do something. I'm already doing all I can do. And what God gives you is a vision. It's a need. And if you see that need, folks, that is your calling. I'm sorry. There's an old saying, if you want to get something done, get a busy man to do it. Well, maybe that's what God is saying back to you, those folks that are praying and already doing. Those folks that are praying and aren't doing, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't, other than caution you that you're hearing things and you need to respond to it. When we come back, panel comments, Bill's comments, BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, this is your last call. Bill, I want to get your comments first. I'm going to open the floor. Betty, you can come in. We're going to put you in, but please mute yourself until you're ready to talk. Just bring everybody in, Mr. Anderson, if you would. Bill, your thoughts on what we just heard.
It sounded a little bit discouraging, some of what CD was saying. I know him, and he's a good man. And, he's on the side of reality. He knew his daughter better than these homosexual activist doctors. It's just appalling that a doctor can basically destroy CD's child's body, and the system can break up that family. And that daughter is going to be living with lifelong consequences. And the doctor is protected, even his identity is protected. That is just appalling. But that is the sad story of the West. I was in Hungary this summer, and interestingly, and a lot of Americans and Canadians need to keep this in mind. When you walk around the streets of Budapest or Szeged, which is a university city, third largest, you'll not see a transvestite and you'll not see a homosexual walking down the streets holding hands. It really is a social contagion. And these lunatics in our public schools and these quack doctors, they're the ones, and of course the media, they're the ones creating this social contagion. And somehow we have to combat the narrative. I agree with BJ that we have to quit complying. I'd prefer not to see violence. I'd prefer to see mass civil disobedience. When the people in Poland rose up against their communist oppressors, there was a critical mass. Right now, we do get hundreds in front of our schools, even here in Canada, saying no. But at this point, it seems the government can still ignore us. Of course, too, we got to remember there is God and we are weak. Sometimes he uses the little things to confound the seemingly strong. So, we do have to pray. I think Martin Luther said, pray like there's no work and then work like there's no prayer. And that's kind of what I've done. That's been my modus operandi. And sometimes God can take the little things, even if we don't reach that critical mass that they had in Poland. Sometimes little things, as Jesus, our Lord, said, or St. Paul said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So if we enter with that attitude, we can do great things through our Lord. And hopefully we can save some children from this lifelong terrible decision. And hopefully we can wake up our culture and they start saying, when the school says you got to do pronouns, they got to say, no, you got to quit doing pronouns. I pay for you. Here in Canada, it's a socialist system. They take our tax money. In theory, we're supposed to have a say. I think in socialism, you always lose your say, but we need to fight to try to get some of it back.
Kevin, there is another Canadian that is under attack, and I think it's a mistake on the part of Canada because I think they picked a fight with somebody that is going to definitely help change things. Mr. Anderson, if you get that video up, go ahead and play it anytime you're ready. But Jordan Peterson has been criticized and I guess has been judged that he's going to have to get his mind right. That he's just not who he should be, and he's not capable of handling a job as a professor of a university until, like I said, he gets his mind right. You got that video, Mr. Anderson?
All right, so doctor, how will you be processing and showcasing this reprogramming for us? Because we'd like to know what's going on.
Well, I'm going to do everything I can to make all of this as public as I possibly can. I mean, I've done that from the beginning. I released all the documents that included the charges, so to speak, that the college has levied against me. I want to make this 100% transparent and let the public decide for themselves who exactly is acting, let's say, in an unprofessional capacity.
So you'll be trying to film the re-education program?
Well, I can't say exactly what is going to happen as it moves forward because the legal ground that I'm standing on is very difficult to define. But my plan is to make everything that's done to me public, and if I can do that by filming, well, then I'll do that, or audio recording, or extensive notes or commentary afterward. Somehow, everything that happens is going to be made public. It's absolutely necessary. And I'm also, by the way, perfectly willing to state that I am stating my opinions on Twitter and social media in my professional capacity. So, for example, the comments I made about Ellen Page, I mean, I'm not least bit happy about what the sadistic surgeon butchers are doing to minors, and I'm also not very happy about narcissistic, let's say, celebrities parading off their new surgically enhanced body and enticing young women, for example, into being sterilized and butchered. And so I think I have a professional obligation, like all therapists and all physicians, to say very clearly that this is 100% absolutely not acceptable.
So what do you think the motivation is by these people in Canada that are doing this? Is it because they're embarrassed that you're a psychologist and you're so popular and you're saying unpopular things? Or is it because there's going to be some more darker, more sinister approach next?
Oh, I think that what we're seeing in Canada is an unraveling of all the principles upon which my country and yours are predicated, and that's part of the ideological possession that's swept over Canada in particular. I mean, it's certainly threatening you characters down in the United States, but we're farther along that road given that we're run by the poster boy for political correctness himself. And it's so amazing because, you know, Justin Trudeau, that's our Prime Minister, his father, Pierre, his contribution to Canadian posterity was the introduction of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which hypothetically guarantees Canadians the right to free speech, but has pretty much no teeth. And it was a bad document to begin with, and whatever little utility it had, his son Justin, who's now our Prime Minister, has destroyed entirely.
So this is an attack on Western civilization, an attack on gender, an attack on biology, an attack on the scientific method. Why would the left pursue an attack on Western civilization, which has provided so much, you know, amazing results over the last, you know, hundreds of thousands of years?
Look, people have been motivated by spite and resentment forever. I mean, it's a story as old as mankind. It's a story as old as the story of Cain and Abel, is that to tear down what's successful and useful in spite because your own sacrifices, let's say, have apparently gone unrewarded. And it's just the same old endless archetypal story playing out in political guise. And there are no shortage of people as well, especially on the more psychopathic side of the continuum, who will adopt the camouflage of compassion. Let's say we see that expressed in relationship to do care for group rights. They'll adopt the camouflage of compassion to tear everything down and dance around in the ruins. And there's actually a fairly extensive psychological literature now detailing the relationship between narcissism, psychopathy, manipulativeness, and left-wing authoritarian political viewpoints. And
is this because something happened to them as children? They feel insufficient, they feel disregarded, they feel disrespected. What causes this lashing out, this violent tearing things down?
Well, everybody is in a position in their lives to feel alienated from existence itself from time to time. I mean, life is pretty difficult and things don't often always turn out the way we want them to, you know, and we can all doubt the meaning of our own lives and the purpose, and we're all subject to a certain amount of torture, and one of the temptations there is to get bitter and resentful and to lash out, to look for enemies, and to tear down tradition, partly merely to shake your fist at destiny itself and to express your dismay. It's a constant temptation for everyone in some ways to be tempted down, to be enticed down that pathway, but it's a very dreadful mistake. And you know, the freedoms that we put in place in the West, especially the freedom of speech, is predicated on the viewpoint, are predicated on the viewpoint that human existence is worthwhile, and so is being itself, and that we should orient ourselves properly upward. And well, you know, some people think that's a good idea, and some people take the opposite tack.
All right, well, we look forward to you showcasing what happens up there, and I look forward maybe next time you could wear Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat suit, maybe a you know, bow tie. I somehow feel like you dressed down for me, and I don't know what I did to deserve that, but we'll see what happens next appearance.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the invitation and for the attention that you're drawing to this. I think the Americans, you guys can watch the collapse of a democratic country and its institutions to the north of you if you want to see how it happens, because it's happening in Canada one step at a time.
We'll be watching closely. Thank you, as always, Dr. Jordan Peterson. And everybody go check out the book, 12 Rules for Life. I'm following 11 of them and turned out okay.
Thank you, sir.
Talk about somebody that needs to have a gag order on them. Oh,
They'll put one on them. They're working on it.
Last year, the governing body for psychologists in the Canadian province of Ontario ordered Dr. Peterson to undergo re-education training for having offended strangers online with his lawful opinions. I don't think this fellow is an enemy you want to make, Bill. And CD, what do you think about this? He doesn't have a gag order on him. What's going on here?
Well, he's also smart. He left the country too, so he's got a couple things going for him that I don't. But no, it's interesting because I was in a movie called What Is a Woman, and of course that was done by the Daily Wire, and of course Jordan Peterson was in that movie with myself, and so I do follow him and some of those guys like Matt Walsh, obviously, and yeah, I mean he's had his struggles and stuff, but he's coming out strong, and he's been pretty direct and firm in his opposition to the madness that's happening. You know, not just in Canada, but in the U.S. as well. He's a big voice. I believe he was actually in Abbotsford not too long ago, and I know the arena sold out, is my understanding. It was Abbotsford, British Columbia. So no, he's a real voice in all of this that people are listening to, and he's been around a while. He was the man that going back, I believe, to 2016. I could be wrong with the date, but was the one when that bill came in, where the conversion therapy bill, when that stuff was first coming to light, and Jordan Peterson was the first one to come out and say they're going to have forced pronouns, and of course, sure enough, that was what happened to me, and so unfortunately, I was the one that proved him correct in a way that he was probably hoping wouldn't have happened, and so he's been at the front of this fight for some time when it comes to all of this misgendering and pronouncing and all this lunacy and nonsense, for sure. So, and yeah, now they want to reprogram him. Where I work, they wanted to reprogram me. They put me off work and said I needed to be reprogrammed for my views, and so this isn't uncommon in Canada. This is stuff that and I work for a big government corporation, if you want to call it that, here. So this is par for the course in Canada right now. Is they want people thinking like the agenda. They want them to be thinking like them, and what's important is that hopefully people remember is I've always said this about my child, is that my child is taking a step in the wrong direction, a big step. I mean, pretty much falling off a cliff with what happened there, and so many people, and I see this with some of these weak pastors in particular. Their son comes out of the closet, says, "Oh, I'm gay." Next thing you know, this pastor is gay, or he's not gay, but he's suddenly supporting it. He went from preaching opposition to it, suddenly finding some way of finding any possible way he can sort of say, "Hey, this isn't bad." He's looking for a loophole, and I always say it's not our job to follow our children into hell. It's our job to pull our children back and pull them back towards heaven. And so many parents will lose their own souls in this attempt to compromise for the sake of their children, because they just can't deal with the fact that they're missing out, or their child may not love them for a time, when actually the responsible and respectful thing to do and the godly thing to do is to never follow your child into their sins.
Amen. Amen, brother. Bill, I'm going to have to, if you have a quick comment, and I'm going to get to some of our panelists, and then we're going to have to close the show out.
Yeah, I would. One thing I would like to point out to you guys is that Dr. Peterson was subjected to a gag order. That's why he's in all this trouble. They don't only use criminal courts, which would be myself and CD. And indeed, we were being gagged. Even I was being gagged. It's my information, my gospel, that homosexuals can change. That's what they were trying to gag. Very common, and I went through it when I was a nurse. They took my license for picketing Planned Parenthood. They call it a professional misconduct when you criticize these agendas. In my case, back then, I was exposing children getting aborted without parental knowledge or consent. And in my disciplinary hearing, Planned Parenthood actually did brag. They didn't hide. They said they were sending 11 and 12-year-olds for abortions and birth control. And I just said, well, that's bad medicine. You're saying that it's a professional misconduct to speak against this. I say Planned Parenthood should be listening to me and teaching chastity and bringing parents as a general rule into their children's decision making.
Amen.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago, and I did in the end prevail, even though I lost my license. Yeah, Dr. Peterson, though, what they're doing now is with the College of Psychologists, the College of Doctors, the College of Nurses. It's very often, if you're not out on the street where you get a criminal charge, if you're just speaking on a podcast or writing an academic paper, what they do when you criticize gender theory or, aborting children without parental knowledge or consent is they go after your license. And that's very, very effective. That silences 99% of the professionals.
That happened, COVID here in Ohio. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, CD. God bless both of you guys. Godspeed, and we are going to win this. We are going to win this. Don't know when.
God, all things is possible.
I just about to say that, Bill. Thank you, brother. Thanks, CD. Thank you. I want to try to get Betty. Did you have something to say? Let you real quick. Yep.
It's so heartbreaking to hear CD's story and also yours, Bill. If that was my grandchild, I already told my son that if that happens, I'll take that 5-year felony jail time. Plus, I might just add a few more years to it, because I will not deal with it. Because my son said that won't happen. I'll go. And I said, nah, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And also, these we're going to be held accountable one day for if we don't do some actions against these demons. They are children of God, and parents need to wake up, quit being deaf, dumb, and blind and your head in the sands, because they believe everything the school says. They need to do their research, and they need to keep tabs of what that school is doing. Go to school board meetings, go to city council, go to whatever you need to do to go to it, because these demons, as I call them, I don't call them anything else, they are grooming our children. They're singing about it. They're telling you exactly what they're going to do, and yet nobody believes what they're doing. So anyway, there's a Bible verse that says that whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. But whoever causes one of these little ones to stumble, or who believes to stumble, it would be better for him to have a heavy millstone around his neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea. Well, I know in Canada, or they used to have, they had assisted suicides. So if these people that want to hurt these little kids, I would be happy to assist them in that millstone.
All right.
So anyway, God bless you guys for what you're doing, and keep fighting the fight, because we are winning, and they're fighting harder, but we're winning.
Thanks, Betty. I love it. Martin, I think you wanted in. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Once again, CD, my heart is torn for you, brother, what you've had to go through. God bless you and the strength that you've had with your family in this court battle. I can only imagine. May God's blessing be upon you, brother. May God's blessing be upon you. Yes, as BJ has said, we have to do, as Betty has said, we have to do things. On my screen, I'm looking at the Ohio Revised Code. And in the Ohio Revised Code, there is in section 2907 is a list of sex offenses. And I would just like to know if there's anybody in Ohio, and attorneys, which I am not, and I know that our staff here on the Last Call at BJ Edwards program is not as well, could get this involved and start looking at these statutes and start filing some litigation against some of this stuff that is happening in our public domains, mainly our children's public schools. I mean, it's all listed right here. I'm sure there's something: importuning, voyeurism, public indecency, all these things that could be litigated here in the state of Ohio to, as what Judges 6 calls, bring down the Asherah poles and the Baal worship altars. We have to do this, church. We have to do this activity calmly, through litigation, speak out, as I've really been a big proponent for, dads being Christian dads again, and start taking the reins of our children's souls and say, honey, God loves you just the way you are. He created you, son. He's made you male to be a leader. That's why he chose male for you. And do these things all together, not hope someone else will do it, not hope that a state official will do it or a pastor will do it. You do it. You have a copy as well. You can go on the internet and find the Ohio Revised Code if you're an Ohio citizen like myself as well, and do it. Thanks, BJ.
You know, I was looking at, thank you. Christian talk radio with a sting is how we bill ourselves. And then we say reality radio, where you can see the difference. I think I'm going to change that to where you can be the difference. What do you think? I got BJ Edwards along, Mr. Anderson, your last call. I'm going to take a chance here. I'm going to let JC say something. I'll probably regret this. And JC, give me a couple minutes because I got to talk about our invite for the presidential debate that we're going to be holding soon. Go ahead, JC. Yep, you muted, brother. You muted.
I went the opposite way on that. Why do I do everything backwards, JC? JR? Hey, guess what? It's getting closer. We're getting ready to head to the public square here in an hour. We'll be up there at 1 o'clock. The God-hating liberals are going to be shocked when they see I got a PA system set up and a permit for the square. I was talking to Coach last night. Now, here's what I did. Once they see me there, we're going to do 1 to 3, church on the square. And once they see that I've got the permit and they can't have the square, then they're probably going to go file Monday or Tuesday to get a permit for their 1 o'clock slot. They've been there 6 years. 6 years every Saturday. They never got a permit. So I went back to the mayor's office yesterday and I reapplied because I got September 2nd today. I went and got the other 4 Saturdays for the whole month of September. I'm doing 5 Saturdays on the square because I got some other pastors, other Christians. Couldn't make it today. They said, hey, if you do that again, we'll come. So now I'm going to start inviting other pastors and Christians in the community and non-Christians to come up to the square. So we're going to address everything we talk about on podcast shows and stuff we hate, all the evil. We're going to address it all up there today.
Mount Vernon, Ohio, folks.
Yep, on the public square, 1 to 3, and that'll be every Saturday this month. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm even taking my Trump flags on the big van I got with that stage on the top. And they're going to be parked there with all them flags on. Them Democrats are just going to be even more livid with me. So now I'm going to tell them this when we start out. I said, listen, you Democrats, it'd probably be best off if you stick around today and hear the messages that are going to be coming on this square. It might benefit your lifestyle. And if not, then you need to leave the square because we have a permit. So we're going to tell them, Trump is not our savior. Jesus Christ is our savior. We're going to have a bunch of signs out. We got signs for everything, for abortion to homosexuality to a corrupt government, you name it. We got signs. And I'm going to tell them, here's the first thing we need to do because America's under judgment. We are under judgment right now. If we don't make the church great again, that make America great again crap doesn't matter.
Amen.
So let's make the church great again. And if you got any more bumper stickers, JR, I'm going to need some. So that's going to be the kick it off. Coach will be rolling in here a little bit. And guess who I got here right now? She's out driving a vehicle right now. But Stephanie, Coach always calls her the former pagan, the one that was in the shamanism.
Yeah.
She's here. She is so excited. She's got a new vehicle, and she's ready to take that microphone on the square. She is going to blast it. She's excited. So that's what we're getting to do. I'd say Coach is probably going to be rolling in here any minute. We're going to get geared up to go up there. And we'll just see what happens. No agenda. We're just going to show up like Pastor Flip Benham says. You just show up and let God show off. That's all. We'll see what happens. You know what I mean?
Amen, JC. I'll try to make it up for one of those.
All right. Pray for us at 1:00 that we get this thing kicked off and it goes great today.
All right, brother.
And we're going to be witnessing, evangelizing. Hopefully we'll lead some people to the Lord. But then we're going to tell them now somebody's got to disciple that person. If you lead them to the Lord, the garage and church in the garage and all the other Saturdays. So it's going to be fun.
All right. Report back to us next week.
All right.
Thank you, brother. Hey, I got something I want to go over, and I'm really excited about it. No, I got the idea because I was listening to apparently there's a debate scheduled between Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis. And I'm going, man, that would probably be a pretty good debate. I mean, some Biden advisors have complained privately, could make voters think Newsom is running in a shadow of 2024, which he's probably doing. Insiders close to the Biden administration also believe the debate could boost DeSantis in the polls. Don't know about that. So here's what I'm thinking. And keep this in mind. At Here's Last Call, we have what we feel a stellar idea, especially when it comes to presidential debates. And nothing the current White House resident who was previously put in office for letting others, especially the news media, speak on his behalf. And we're not going to include that individual. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a presidential debate with the following at the podium. I said presidential debate, okay? The aforementioned DeSantis, somebody's eating. DeSantis and let's see, Newsom. So the two we mentioned before. And Robert Kennedy Jr. Now, this is a presidential debate, okay? So far it's going to be DeSantis, Newsom, and Kennedy. And then we're going to round it out with Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie. Doesn't look like we got room on the stage for him, Mr. Anderson. Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, and of course, Donald Trump. And that's so Chris Christie can have someone to yell at. And yes, we purposely excluded another former vice president, Mike Pence, because we already have enough progressives invited to the debate. So there it is. The invite is official now. Presidential candidates, you heard it here first. Let us know what Saturday morning is going to be best for you. And we'll have you all on the show and we'll have a debate and I'll conduct it. And maybe get a Canadian or two to help us as well. Who knows? Trump won, right? Hey, we appreciate you listening in this morning. Hope you've learned something. Hope you're going to do something. That is the key here. Again, not where you can see the difference, but where you can be the difference. And it's going to take doers to do it. Look at the opportunities are out there. These aren't problems. These are opportunities. Every time you watch Fox News or CNN and you see all the negatives out there, consider that your calling, especially if you think that's a big negative. Consider that your calling. And what do you need to do? Go to your candidates. Ask them about a natural family month, or use the other items that we've mentioned this morning. momsforliberty.org. Folks, there's people out there that are doing things and want to help you and have their hands out and looking for your hands. And we need your hands to get this job done, folks. Thanks for listening today. Remember, vote no. No on issue 1 in Ohio. And maybe they'll listen. And hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. They can do what they can do and everything be okay. God bless you. Godspeed. Have a great weekend, folks. Enjoy those cookouts. Enjoy your family. And maybe even go to church. Thanks again, BJ Edwards, along with Mr. Anderson. This has been your last call.
Join us next week for Last Call with BJ Edwards.